Calling this meeting to order, Monday, August 11th, 6 p.m. Mike Gooch, would you please do roll call?
Jason Bennett.
Here.
Crosby Bugenhagen.
She's excused.
Mike Gooch, I'm here. Jake Hilligenthal.
He's excused.
James Olson.
Here.
Dale Porter.
Here.
Eric Schwartz.
Here.
Carolyn Simon.
She's excused.
Craig Wirtz.
Here.
All right, this is an open meeting and it has been posted. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ixnay on the public comments. Okay.
No, I can take care of that.
I know you got here a little late. Do you have anything you want to, any public comments? Okay. Okay, we don't have any public comments. Moving down to presentations, the report on the renaming survey.
Yep, Ben Casso is here this evening to take us through the results of the advisory survey for the board.
Hi, Ben. Oh, didn't we do that already? I think we did that already.
Not the
I'll
result.
scroll.
Oh, we said hi to Ben.
Oh, we did. There you go, Ben.
Yay, now you can hear me. Good evening. As mentioned, presenting our middle school naming survey results. We conducted this survey this summer, and the survey closed a couple weeks ago, so wanted to share this information. So if we want to go to the next slide, we can get into some of the details of what this entailed. The survey was open from July 12th through August 4th, and we pushed that out through a variety of different means, including our social media accounts, our district website, Key News for Families. We had one Key News for Families during that time as well. And then a postcard that we mailed out to every resident home, every residence within the district. So we pushed that out a couple different ways to make sure that anybody that was interested could submit their votes. The survey was online. It was conducted through an application that we purchased called Qualtrics. You might have heard that used in the past. And so we conducted that survey online. In the end, all said and done, we had a little bit over 3,500 votes received, but there were some pieces to that I wanted to share with you that will help explain the data over the next two slides. So we had a pretty consistent rate of response each time that we pushed that information out. So when the postcard dropped in homes, when we would post on social media, when we'd have Key News, we would see a pretty regular increase in the votes. And we could always point to, like, we did this and we saw an increase in votes. But on about July 22nd and 23rd, in that 24-hour span, we received kind of an unusual 1,200 votes, about 1,200 votes from 4 individual IP addresses. Now, this was an anonymous survey, but there's always metadata that's collected within this survey as well. And you might be wondering, what's an IP address, Ben? IP address is basically an address, a numeric code for the devices that you use. So every one of the devices that you have there, your cell phones, they have an IP address that goes with it. And part of the reason that metadata is collected to be able to see if any one particular device is just pinging our survey repeatedly. And it appears in that span, we had about 1,200 votes that came from, like I said, 4 different individual IP addresses. Actually, about 2 of those IP addresses accounted for almost 1,000 of those 1,200 votes. And so, again, I'm not saying, I'm not making a conclusion based on that data, but it's suspect data at that point when prior to that we had a total of 1,991 votes, and we get 1,200, and we had no publicized push that would have generated that kind of results. The other thing that was suspicious within that is that literally all but 3 of those 1,200 plus votes were in favor of one choice. So it's not typical you would see that. As I'm able to dig into that metadata a little bit further, there are other pieces that were a little suspicious. Literally, you could just see somebody was pounding that survey about every, I'd say, 8 to 10 seconds, over a period of time.
Obvious question. Robot or a bot or someone with an agenda? Someone really wanted a name change?
I'm not going to speculate necessarily, but what I can say is that within the IP address, there is a certain element of it that's a public record, and so that you can actually see, basically the provider, and maybe generally kind of a location. This wasn't like a Russian bot. That was one of the first things I thought, like, is this somebody sitting in their, parents' basement in Pakistan just hitting our survey? No, it was, in open session, I'll say it was somebody within Waukesha County, and probably within our attendance areas. So somebody who had an interest in that, I think is fair to say at that point too. And again, that's as far as I was able to dig. And so I wanted to present that piece of that as well. I know one of the questions that'll come up is, why didn't you run this like we run our school perception surveys, which we've done for the referendum, and everybody would need a code in order to respond. This was not as high leverage a survey. When we're surveying to go to referendum, to look at expanding our buildings or to renovate or build something new, that's a pretty high stakes survey. And so we will take on the added cost, and there is added cost to do a survey like that. And there's a lot of added time as well. We are able to do that internally, but to provide a specific code to anybody that wants it, requires extra postage to mail these things out. And not only that, it requires an extra step for people in the community that wanted to get their voice heard. And for a survey like this, we just wanted to open it up and allow people to send their preferences in. So a little bit of background before I show you two flavors of the data here. So if we go to the next slide, this is simply the raw data. You're gonna learn a new word, deduplicated data. This is non-deduplicated data. So this is just taking everything that was submitted. And when you look at those more than 3,500 votes, you can see that Veterans Memorial Middle School in this sort of slice of the data would have had the strongest preference, coming in at about 48% of those votes. Retaining the Parkview Middle School name was about 35% of those votes, and then changing it to Mukwonago Middle School came in at about 12%. Changed to something else had a really small percent. To be honest, it was a smattering of a lot of different ideas in that one. There was no single response there that generated a majority of like the other category. Probably the biggest response in there would have been Donald Trump Middle School, and then a garden variety of a whole lot of other things, including my personal favorite, Schooly McSchoolface.
What was it?
Schooly McSchoolface. So there's a story behind that. But
That was Jason for
yeah, so they provided some a little bit of light humor for me in reading that, and then there were a smattering of other responses in there of people maybe expressing their disagreement with the project in general, or some people who oddly chose to select other and still say, why are you changing the middle school name, rather than just clicking the keep Parkview Middle School as an option.
Joe Cook was a big vote getter. Joe Cook Middle School.
I didn't see him in there, but I
don't
could go
recall
back
seeing
and
my
check.
name in there.
Probably was one of his kids. So if we go,
From surveys.
if you want to go to the, so anyway, I would say that this is not, because this includes all of that suspect data, I would say this is probably not highly reliable data. If we go to the next slide, so what did we do? What did we try to do to get an idea of what our responses probably really look like from the community standpoint? What I'm able to do with that survey tool is to pull the raw data out and sort it by IP address. And Joe and I actually talked about this. We agreed that a maximum of 4 votes per IP address is a pretty reasonable count. You could do it a couple different ways, but 4 votes per IP address would allow a family, husband, wife, 2 kids, in a family to vote. Not every IP address had 4 votes. In fact, most did not. But this allowed us to be able to take a look at trends that exist, maybe subtracting out that data, including any of the other ones that were maybe duplicated by IP address. With that in mind, you can take a look at how that data fell out, and retaining the Parkview Middle School name in this slice came out at just about 60%. Changing it to Mukwonago Middle School came out at about 20.5%, and then changing it to Veterans Memorial Middle School came out at about 14%. Again, I would say that this is more reliable data. I'm not going to say it's 100% reliable data. I don't know that you can ever create a survey that is fully reliable when you look at a community our size, but this is 2 different slices of that data that I wanted to share with you tonight. Questions, comments, concerns?
Mike?
I'm just curious on the 4 IP addresses. Can we I guess I'm trying to speculate, like, where that would have come from. Could it have been, like, at the VFW, and they just had everyone there, and they said, come here and vote, or something like that?
I mean, it's possible, but what was interesting about it, it was literally it was like clockwork every 10, 15 seconds. So it's not like they had a bunch of devices out there and then everybody hit it within, between like 5 and 6 p.m.
Sure.
No, it was
yeah.
literally like
For
8:30.
24 hours.
Well, I mean, somebody took a break to sleep and eat in there, but I mean, it was pretty regular. It was, and like probably a lot of us have done this before with different surveys and like all-star balloting and things where you go through and you click and you highlight it and you reset and you click again. There's a certain time that it takes you to go through that too.
Yeah, and I took the survey, but it was so long ago, I don't remember, like, there was no phone number or email you had to put on there, so.
And we did that intentionally. We don't,
Yeah,
like,
okay.
that just, people get suspect when you put personal information in there, and we chose to not do that. We did ask for demographic information. Do you live within Mukwonago? Are you a staff member? Are you a student? I would be remiss in saying that as we disaggregate the data by those different demographics, if you will, we saw pretty similar results to that deduplicated by IP address. So it was pretty clear that in multiple layers it kind of reflected that.
So Ben, moving on, do we have to vote on this?
We don't really need to vote. So this survey was advisory for the board. The question just being, do we want to consider a name change for Parkview? And if we do, what would the survey feedback be? If the board looks at and accepts this slide here, the 4 votes per IP address, which gets us to where we were prior to that, I think it was the July 22nd date vote surge, then we stay the course. There doesn't need to be any action taken. If the board would look at this and say, you know what, we still want to consider a different name, then because the name is currently Parkview, the board then would vote then to pick a new name for the school.
So I'm good with the current name. Parkview's a good name. But is this so someone can come back to us and say, you didn't listen to what the community said, even though it looks like a bunch of crap?
Well, I mean, Craig, the community of the respondents with 4 votes per IP address. So as I watch the data, I check the board every day, and statistically speaking, when you hit 300 responses on a survey, you're starting to get to a number where no matter how many more votes you get, it rarely is going to change substantially. So when we hit that first, I'd say by the end of that first week, Parkview, the name Parkview was right around 60%, followed by Mukwonago Middle School, which was about 25%, followed by Veterans Memorial, which was somewhere in the neighborhood of 15%, if my memory serves me correctly.
Pretty close, yep.
And then the day that this happened, it was like watching the sausage race at the brewery, where, chorizo is in the lead, followed by Italian, and, suddenly bratwurst is really starting to pass everybody up. And it was, with a background in research statistics, looking at it, it wasn't adding up. And so Ben dug into the IP addresses, and we found 4 of them were generating a lot of activity. So if the community says that this one is accurate, that would really say that we've got almost 1,200 people in the community relying on 4 IP addresses.
I would go further to say 2 of those IP addresses accounted for about 1,000 of the votes.
The fix was on. We're good. I'm good.
So,
Somebody was invested in it. Yeah.
I mean, I think
Jim? Do you have something? Oh,
Jason.
okay. Jason?
You'll have to forgive me if this was covered in a previous meeting because I was missing, but has there been an accounting on what it would cost if we were to even consider changing to whatever name, when you look at uniforms and all the different things that we would have to?
So Jason, we started to look into that, and so the school itself is going to come with a branding thing. We're buying new lettering for the side of the school. We're buying, new flooring, the new paint, the new decals. From that standpoint, that's already in the cost of the project.
Okay.
The middle school is going to open in 2 years, and so the name change in 2 years would account for any stationery, letterhead, envelopes that we currently have. We would burn through that, and then we would order Parkview stuff at a kind of a minimal order just to kind of keep us going. And then uniforms, between fundraising and district funds, the uniforms for our sports teams and such, you know, that's on a replacement schedule anyway. So, you know, we would have to replace. There might be a cost associated with that, but within the grand scheme of the almost $90 million that the middle school is costing, that would be a small fraction from a budgetary standpoint. We'd have to expedite some uniform replacement, but we could also then order ahead as that schedule is coming forward. So that's not a prohibitive cost in the grand scheme of renaming this school. Again, we've got new lettering, new signs coming. Those are the big pieces of it. And then stationary uniforms and all that other stuff is very small on the back end.
I think this reflects what I've been hearing and what I've seen on social media too.
Yep.
All right, any other questions for Ben? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben?
Moving on to consent agenda, looking for the approval of the school board meeting minutes of July 21st, 2025. Any questions or comments? That is approved by consent. Moving on to policy 2240.
So we talked a little bit along the way just about controversial issues in the classroom. This has come up, you know, on and off over the last couple of years. This policy, we took a look at it, and we want to make sure that it is understood that there are some courses where controversial topics could be part of the curriculum. That is all board approved. There are some prohibitions that we're proposing to add in there around political or controversial flags, signs, clothing, accessories, etc. That the board does not allow that in schools. And then there is the general reminder that there could be discipline associated with violating this policy. So you'll see some addition and some redlining in there. Again, this isn't up for vote tonight, but certainly up for discussion if anybody has questions.
Any questions? We're good, thank you. Moving on to policy 5820.
So 5820, student government. So we have a couple of drafts in here of both the policy, which I'll put up there, and this is the blank template. Our current policy has the first line, the Board of Education acknowledges, and then the second line, students shall have the right to organize, conduct meetings, elect officers. But the Neola template, so they give us some guidance on this. The Neola template has some other options in there. And in that template, it says the district administrator shall establish administrative guidelines to implement the policy. We don't have the administrative guideline on the books right now. So we've had some questions come in around student government. So we revisited the policy, right? That's where a lot of stuff starts. So just showing you what that administrative guideline can look like. And essentially, the board passes policies, and then the superintendent passes or establishes administrative guidelines. These are the rules by which the policy is being carried out in the district. So we haven't done work on this yet. And again, bringing this forward just for some discussion and question this evening. There has been some work proposed, just from a policy standpoint, on what could be a more detailed policy. And you don't have to read this up there tonight, but it's something that we can discuss over the next couple of meetings if the board would like. Just around what the shape of student government could look like in the Mukwonago School District. So I would encourage you guys to read this, take a look at it, and ask questions. We certainly can come back as a discussion item in the meetings ahead. One thing that I'd like to remind the board on is some of our schools, from a change standpoint, some of our schools have already selected their student government reps going into this year. So from a change standpoint, if I was making a recommendation, I would say that, this policy work, if we could carry that out over the course of the year, talk to some advisors, talk to some students, have some board members present when we do that to help this policy really take shape in life. For a school district, I would make that recommendation to you. The second or the final document that we have included in here is just around what the constitution of a student government could look like. And again, purpose of student government, one, to provide some leadership in and around the student activities at the school, but also to teach a valuable civics lesson. You know, the participation in this, the platform in this, the leadership that's associated with it is definitely valuable to student growth. So put it up there. Those are the documents. If there's any questions or want to have any discussion.
Mike?
Hey, Joe, I did read through it. I thought a lot of it was pretty good. But on Article 6, where it talks about meetings, and I forgot which attachment, I think. There you go.
Yep.
Open meetings shall be open to all students as observers unless closed session. Does that mean there will be no adults at the meeting at all?
There will.
I'm a little concerned if that's.
Anytime students gather, we need to have a advisor there, an adult advisor. So all of our student government groups at the elementary, middle, and high school will have their advisor present. You know, thinking about like when would they have a more closed meeting from the general student population, they might do that in and around a homecoming activity that the student government is coordinating. They might have that in and around the upcoming, how will the next elections be handled? But those would be the types of things then that the student government would probably have a smaller group and a larger group.
So the closed meeting would be a lot smaller. It would just be the people who get elected.
Probably the
Yeah, my concern is the open meeting. If you have 150 students and no adult supervision.
So adult supervision is always part of it.
Dr. Cook, can you talk in the microphone, please?
Parkview currently has over 100 students, so they have almost 20% of their school is participating in their student government, and they attend meetings and activities. So a large group, but we always have a faculty advisor present.
Thank you.
Any other questions? As I say, I'm a big advocate of having student reps that are actually voted in by the students. Definitely, I think this is going to be a good thing for our whole district. Learning civics and students, how the whole process works while they're in high school, I think is a great thing. And we can implement this in our elementary schools. I think Eagleville does a great job with this, and we can probably even touch on them and reach out to them and kind of get some feedback from them how everything's working over there.
So we'll definitely put this in our next work, but we just want to bring this obviously to the board's attention.
Yep. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Moving on to policy 5610.
So we have included in this is the policy on suspension and expulsion, and this policy outlines board authority to expel a student from school. We have had a number of conversations in and around student discipline, and what I and my team is asking for is that the board consider an expulsion resolution that would allow expulsions to be conducted by a 3-member panel. So when you expel a student from school, you get a 15-day window to set up that expulsion hearing. We have a 9-member board. Trying to get 9 members together with busy schedules can be very difficult. A 3-member panel would allow us to be a little bit more nimble. And if we were ever to be in a situation where we had to expel a younger student from school, as a superintendent, I struggle by putting that kid out for 15 days. I would like the panel to be more flexible. We could get together sooner so that that student could return to some level of learning much quicker than a 15-day window. I mean, that's 3 weeks of school, and if you're young, that's very difficult to come back from. With an expulsion resolution, if the board adopts a 3-member panel, the way that works is we meet essentially every 30 days as a board between our committee of the whole and regular board meetings. With this resolution, the 3-member panel would hear the expulsion. They would make a recommendation of expulsion. You know, in some instances, the board might recommend expelled through the age of 21 with no opportunity for early return. The board might recommend expelling through 21 with opportunity for early reinstatement, put some conditions in there or delegate those conditions to the administration. After the board panel makes that determination, at the subsequent committee of the whole or at the subsequent board meeting, whichever comes first, the whole board then would have an opportunity to vote on that expulsion in one of 2 formats. We can have that on the consent agenda. If the board as a whole says, committee handle this or panel handle this, we support your decision. We will also then have that agendized in executive session, so that when you see the expulsion, the results of the expulsion panel under consent, a board member would have to say, I would like to pull that and discuss it in exec session. It'll already be agendized. In executive session, then the whole board could get hear about what was discussed and hear what the results of it were. And then the whole board could either vote and support that, or the whole board could say, hey, wait a second, we think that's more severe, or that's too harsh, and they could amend that, and then we could implement that. So at the end of the day, the whole board has the final decision-making over it. The panel just allows us to be a little bit more flexible and meet the student need a little bit quicker.
Fertz?
So are we going to have further discussion on this, or do you want some discussion now? Because I have an opinion on this, but.
So we can certainly discuss it tonight. It would then, I would propose that we then add it to the agenda for the meeting next Monday, where the board would take action on it.
I think the three-member panel is a good call, and I think that I think the board would trust the three-member panel would do a good job with this. That's my opinion. And consent agenda, I guess.
Any other comments? I'll agree. I think getting everybody's schedule together to come on a specific date, especially on a timely basis, I think the three panel would work best.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we could certainly have this on the agenda for next Monday then, where the board then would vote to take action on this.
Last thing, could the vice president appoint people on this three-member committee?
So we, if the vice president, actually the president would delegate the panels. We can also then be, just so you know, the president could delegate that as a board responsibility. We could break that up by trimester-ish of the school year. But we also then could have the flexibility to say, so-and-so is not available. Mike, are you available to sit in on this? And then you're not necessarily locked into who, but just have the ability to have that three-member panel.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Moving on to personnel topics.
All right, the first thing I have is the update on our co-curricular activities and athletics handbook. So really excited about this. Our team met again actually today, so there have been updates even as of like 3 o'clock this afternoon. And so last time I talked a little bit about the goal of this work was really to make this a cohesive K-12 document that represented our paid curricular activities and athletics system-wide. And so we had a team, again, of teachers, administrators. We had Andy Trudell serve on the team, Josh Korth, our athletics and activities advisors. And the latest revision, so the document that was presented to you today, the highlights in green are the additions to some of the amounts that we looked at. Those additions were really just based on some factors, including an increase in the student enrollment, right-sizing some of the areas that really were not comparable to some of the other departments. So for example, we looked at the musical and we looked at marching band, and after talking to the staff of those two areas and learning about the hours that go into that, we really felt that it's essentially the same as a high school season. And so we compensated the head of those similar to a head coach. We had conversations again about certain areas in the handbook prior didn't award an increase in the stipend amount for years of service in 6 years of service 6 through 10 or years of service 11 plus. And when we kind of looked at, well, why not? Wasn't really a good rationale. So again, we made sure that anybody who was doing, an advisor or coach for an extended period of time was given that increase. And today's meeting again we had a lot of favorable feedback as to, again, recognizing that even with these stipends, if you know any head coaches or advisors. They are still paid pennies on the dollar for the amount of work that they put into these experiences for kids, but still, again, honoring that work. And then lastly, again, really spelling out clearly what the description of our activities, what that looks like, updating those to be reflective of activities that we have actually offered. We removed activities that haven't run in many years. We updated the names of some of the activities that hadn't been updated in quite some time. So again, just really trying to make this a live document that is reflective of what we're currently doing in the system. Questions?
Any questions, comments? We're good, thank you.
I think, real quick, I think that given some of these people that have been 10, 11-year teachers or coaches or whatever, they should be, because you can't find these people to promote musicals or choir or whatever. I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Ertz, is he okay?
Thank you.
Have we considered ever compensating further if they go further in the season, if they get to state or if they get through the playoffs or anything like that, just because they're putting more work in?
We do have that. So if you, on page, it's in here. If you go to the stipend page on page 4, we do give head coaches additional compensation for if they make it to a conference championship, regional championship, state runner-up, or a state championship. For exactly that reason, there's an extended season there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Moving on to staff handbooks.
All right, so the staff handbooks, again, are being presented to you with some updated items in there. The updates are really not that extensive. They both really revolve around updates to our system. We updated this year to Skyward, which has been an incredible lift for the business department and for our HR department. And so we updated language in both our support staff handbook and our professional staff handbook around how staff need to enter their absences and time off. We have completely changed the way in which our hourly staff and, again, our professional staff will do that. And so state statute defines that we have to pay somebody for hours worked within 30 days. So we, again, have just updated some of the language in our handbook to be reflective of, again, that new system transfer, as well as, again, just making sure that people are recording their time accurately. And so those were the major changes. We really have not done anything else. And again, our attorneys vet this every year just to make sure that if there have been any statutory updates, that we are, again, ensuring that we're compliant with those, but we didn't have anything that we were out of compliance with this year. So I'm going to bring those forward next week for approval.
Mike?
Just one quick thing to get on the record. I know it's probably completely obvious, but I'm not a lawyer, but when I read through, it talked about if you don't update your time card in a timely manner. Now, there would be a complete exception for someone who had a horrible accident and was in a hospital and all that stuff, right?
Yes, we have language for catastrophic illness and for, yes, we would absolutely
Thank you.
make an exception.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, student learning topics.
Okay. I have a few informational items for you tonight. The first is an update on our 3rd through 5th grade ELA pilot. At the May committee of the whole meeting, Michelle Ziegler and I presented our plan and the process that we used to get to this point with our 3rd through 5th grade ELA pilot. That is going to be occurring during the first 2 trimesters of this coming school year. And as we shared at the May meeting, we went through quite a thorough process of looking at multiple different resources, really vetting those through looking at how they align to the standards and looking at how they lined up with the look-fors that we had for those resources. And then we have decided to narrow that down to looking at 2 specific resources, which are Amplify CKLA, and Benchmark Advance. So we have grade level teams that will be collaboratively piloting these resources. Each team that's piloting will pilot the same resource, and each pilot group is piloting just one resource. In the memo, as you can see there is a chart that details which grade levels are piloting which resource and at which school. Just a few weeks ago, we held training for the pilot teachers, so each of them had training on the respective resources, and then they've started to work with their instructional coaches to really dig into the units that they will be teaching and to pace the material out both for those units and then pacing out the material from our current resources for the year so that there's no interruption in student instruction. In the next couple of weeks, we will provide information for parents, so we will send them a letter if their child is going to be in one of the pilot classrooms. And then Michelle Ziegler and I will hold a community viewing night on September 17th. So we will invite any parents or community members to come out. We'll share with them a little bit about our process, about the resources, and then they'll have an opportunity to take a look at those. And then, of course, as we move through the year, we will be carefully monitoring, we'll be evaluating, we'll be collecting feedback from the teachers, from the coaches, principals. We will collect feedback from students and parents, and then determine what our next steps will be. Any questions on that?
We're good, thank you.
Okay. All right, the next item is also information, and this is regarding our August professional development with staff, which is coming up in just 2 weeks. We will be welcoming our staff back to the buildings on August 25th through the 28th. During those days, staff will be participating in a number of different PD activities. Some of those will be held in the respective buildings. Some of those we will all come together as a district. There will be various items that are happening at the elementary level and the secondary level. All buildings will be introducing their building goals to their staff during this time, and then teachers will have the opportunity to continue to work in their collaborative teams on their PLC processes. On August 26th, we are going to bring all of our staff together for our district-wide kickoff, and we will have some rotations of various professional development. So we're looking forward to our staff coming back to the buildings and having a great start to the school year. Any questions on that?
We are good, thank you.
All right. So the last item then is just an update on some work that we've been doing this past school year around our elementary progress reporting. So this year, we spent some time evaluating how we report out on elementary student progress throughout the year. And we engaged in this work really for a number of reasons. First, of course, it's always good practice to continually evaluate the different processes that we have in place. And in this case, we want to just make sure that we are providing information to parents that is timely and helpful in order for them to know how their students are progressing throughout the year. And then we want to make sure that information is in a manageable frequency. We also had some additional reporting pieces this year regarding student reading progress. And this is due to those Act 20 requirements. We've talked about that a little bit through the year. So again, Act 20 is the early literacy law that requires some specific training, testing, and then reporting out to parents. So because of this, we gathered some feedback from some of our different groups. So we got feedback from our teacher advisory, from our CAT chairs, and from our parent advisory group. And so tonight, I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of what our current process looks like. I'm going to share the feedback, and then I'm going to share some of the recommendations that our elementary CAT chair leaders have for moving forward. So this is an overview of what our current progress reporting looks like at the elementary level. We really have three main modes of communicating progress, and these are progress reports, report cards, and then conferences. There are some samples of each of those things linked on this slide for your reference. And just a note that 4K and kindergarten looks just a little bit different in terms of frequency. You can see that noted down below each column. But for kindergarten through 6th grade, there is one progress report and one report card each trimester. For the 3rd trimester, that progress report does become an optional progress report, and it is based on need. So the progress reports just give a very brief indicator of a child's progress in each core subject area, and then it also includes an indicator of how they are doing on learner behaviors, which is things like being respectful, responsible, and safe. The report card then includes a bit further detail. So in the report cards, we score the students on specific standards in each of those core subject areas. We also, again, score the students on those learner behaviors, and then teachers are putting written comments regarding what occurred during that trimester and on student progress. We also have report card companions, and those give parents some specific details about the learning expectations for each standard that is on the report card so that they really know what each of those scores mean. And then in terms of conferences, we have conferences for all students in October. And at those, of course, the teachers are providing some specific details on assessments and other progress for each child. And then in February, we hold optional conferences, and those, again, are based on need. Next slide. And then in addition to all of those reporting methods that we also have some additional reporting on a number of assessments. So we have a district screener, which is FastBridge. This screener assesses students 3 times a year. So for 1st through 5th grade students, they are assessed with FastBridge in math, and then 2nd through 5th grade students are assessed in FastBridge in reading. So those reports are shared with families, and again, those come home 3 times a year. For students in 4K through 3rd grade, there's some universal screening that occurs for Act 20 in the area of reading. And those reports are sent to families 3 times a year for kindergarten through 3rd grade, and then 2 times a year for 4K students. And then in addition to that, we are communicating if students did not meet the benchmarks on those screeners, they get what is called a personal reading plan. And so there's additional communication that goes out for those students. And then finally, any students who are receiving an intervention receive progress reports from their interventionist regarding their progress in the specific intervention that they are in. All right, so that's the current state. And then I'm going to shift gears and give you the feedback that we've received as we've worked on this. So in talking with our teacher advisory group and our CAT chairs, we received feedback regarding the frequency and the quality of the reporting. So regarding the progress reports, teachers shared that although the information on the progress report is minimal in terms of what it provides in details to parents about a child's progress, they are very time consuming to fill out. In addition to that, the timing of the progress reports can be challenging in some cases. So for example, in October, we have progress reports that are shared with parents at the parent-teacher conference. The teacher is also at that time trying to prep other detailed information that they are going over with the parent at the conference. So that timing is a little bit challenging. Also in the 2nd trimester, we have progress reports that come out in early February, and then just a month later, in March, we have the actual report card that comes out. So it's a pretty tight turnaround and short time frame there. Additionally then, teachers noted that for some parents, they are receiving even additional touches with communication. Those students who qualify for those personal reading plans as part of Act 20 have even more touch points of communication throughout the year. We're checking in on those plans multiple times a year. And sometimes those check-ins, which might be on the phone or might be a meeting, are right before or after progress report time. Next slide. So then in April, I shared our current state of progress reporting with the parent advisory group that we meet with and asked them to provide some feedback on our elementary progress reporting. So the parents that were in attendance shared that they very much appreciate the detailed information in the report card companions, and they found that very helpful in understanding what is being reported on for each standard and where their child is within that standard. The parent advisory group also shared that overall, it is not as important to them what the frequency of the report card is, but rather they are more interested in the quality of the feedback that they are receiving on the reports that we do have. They discussed the possibility of discontinuing progress reports and instead having teachers focus on including specific personalized comments for each child on the report cards themselves. And then we also discussed the information provided at conferences, which parents find helpful, and we just talked about ensuring that communication has been provided before conferences if there are any challenges or concerns. So when we take into account all of that information from looking at what we currently have and all the feedback that we collected, we worked with our CAT chair group, which is our elementary subject area leaders, to determine some recommendations for moving forward. So one recommendation from the group, again, based on all of the feedback that was collected and some of the challenges that we experienced, is to look at the possibility of changing the frequency of the progress reports so that we can focus on providing better communication and information to parents at conferences and on the report cards. The CAT chairs also recommended creating standardized conference discussion guides so that teachers across each grade level are sharing consistent information with parents at those October conferences. So in June, we had our CAT chair leaders together, and they spent some time creating drafts of those discussion guides. So we have those all created, and we'll look at using those this year. We also discussed changing the expectation for personalized comments on the report cards. Currently, how that works is personalized comments about a student's progress is mainly provided when a student is receiving a score that is considered not proficient. So we talked about if we change the frequency of the progress reports, that it would be important to make sure we have the expectation that all students are receiving specific comments regarding their strengths and their next steps in their progress on those report cards. And then finally, as we always do, we would just continue to work with teachers to ensure that they are regularly communicating with parents. If there are any challenges or concerns that are arising at any time other than these reporting times, they would be reaching out to parents to talk to them. So next steps for this, as I said, we created those drafts of those conference guides. So we are going to pilot those at the October conferences, and we'll make any refinements to those based on feedback that we receive from parents and from teachers. We will, throughout the year, provide communication to parents regarding how our elementary reporting currently looks and those recommended changes that we have going forward. We're going to start this year working with our teachers regarding new practice for those specific comments on the report cards. And then finally, we would gather additional feedback from our wider parent group and analyze that feedback to determine other next steps in this area. So that's what we currently have in our recommendations. Are there any questions that you have?
We do not have any, thank you. And moving on to student service topics.
Hello. So I just put a memo in tonight regarding an award that our district received. It was a $50,000 award for the AODA grant. So I wrote for that grant a couple months back, and we were fortunate enough to be awarded. The grant itself will be a 2-year commitment. It would be a part-time person that we are looking to hire, and it will be completely funded through the grant. The person will be in charge of providing targeted supports to students who have been found in violation of our AODA policy. In addition to that, we would like this person to continue to look at more preventative and proactive ways that we can keep our students from making decisions that put them in violation. We would also be asking for them to facilitate learning opportunities for students to better understand the impact of using substances. So right now we currently have like different licenses to vape educate and different like programs like that. In isolation alone with just a kid clicking through a program, I don't know that we get a ton of bang for our buck from that. What we do get is when we have a student completing a program like that and we're stopping to discuss that and we are authentically applying that, that's a different conversation that we're learning from. And so over the last 6 years, I'm going into my 7th year, we've tried a bunch of different pathways with our AODA positions. We hired Kristen Roberts, if you guys any remember her, back at SOAR for a part-time social worker. She eventually wanted to do full-time, and we didn't have that available to her. We tried this last year using somebody through the Gals Institute. That just wasn't sustainable. And what we're losing in the in-between is that constant for parents and somebody who our kids are really building a rapport with. And so the Gals Institute, although is somebody we've had a partnership for a long time, it just wasn't hitting the mark for what we needed. Just looking too, I know a question was brought up just about, is it a duplication for what we're already doing? So when we're looking at our student services that we currently employ in the district, the Wisconsin DPI has recommended ratios. We don't necessarily follow them, but they're recommended, and I'll tell you why, because mostly Tom would tell me I'm breaking the bank, but like school counselors, for example, have a 1 to 250 student ratio. So if you think of all of our buildings, we would be understaffed. If you think about school psychs, it's 1 to 500, so that puts our elementary building in good spots, but it doesn't put our middle school and high school in one. So I'd need 3 full-time school psychs, Tom, if you can get on that. And then school social workers are 1 to 250 students, and we have roughly 5,000 students in our district. And we have 2.5 social workers. So this person puts this on their plate that nobody else has room for. We do have the Care Solace as a tool also, but that is a mental health navigation tool for parents. This would be very student-centered. This person would also be the liaison to work with our administration. So when a student was found in violation, they would be a direct contact with the administrator involved, as well as myself and the parents. Do you have any other questions?
Any questions? Mike?
Just a quick comment.
Sure.
And I know this has been brought up before. I'm all for, trying to fight this. But the nicotine vaping stuff, and I know that's been a problem. I don't know what the answer is, but I look back, my own son graduated 2 years ago, and within a year of him graduating, I was floored at how many of his friends and him were doing vape. And I don't know if it's a scared, straight approach or harp on the dangers of it preventively, but it seems like once they get hooked on it, it's horrible.
Yeah.
So just my 2 cents.
Like the current medications that are out there for people to quit smoking, for example, were never made with vapes in mind. And so vapes are just so much they're just so much higher in potency. We did make some good progress, I felt like, with police department and our prosecutor for Mukwonago. So we are going to be working with him. His name is Matt Grillinger, something like that. Grillinger. And so we're going to work together when we hold like meetings that are situated here, typically a pre-expulsion meeting, so that we can partner when students have to show up at court, that we can also be there as a school personnel to be able to give that like full 360. It'll be beneficial for us because when a kid is doing a great job in school, we'll be able to go back and say, hey, this is happening, or, well, not really, but let's figure out a plan, right? So we're making some steps, and those are tickets for vapes. So
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe this person coming in, maybe more education for the parents, because I was dumbfounded. Like, there's no smell to it. They can do it in their room in the basement. You never know what's happening.
yeah, and
Thanks.
the smell is really like walking into Bath and Body Works, like, or I don't know, bubble gum. Yeah.
Eric?
With that said, are we looking at possibly maybe getting a little bit more harsher on the punishment with people smoking in? I know that I'm being told that they'll smoke, they'll take their hit, and they'll blow it into the toilet and flush it at the same time in an effort to, dissipate it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it truly is the game of cat and mouse. I mean, when I was in school, it was cigarettes and chewing tobacco, and could you sneak alcohol in a bottle of Coke to school? I think, we are definitely in that cat and mouse. The thing that some of our neighboring communities have done, and we've been in contact with the village on, is they've increased the cost of the ticket. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, like a ticket in Mukwonago is about $150, ballparking it. But there are some communities that have gone as high as $600 for a ticket. So, you need to get to a price point where it's not so much $150 doesn't mean a whole lot to me, 600, and then you ramp up from there afterwards, 900, 1,000, whatever it is. That really starts to engage, I think, the whole family in the discussion, instead of just $150. So I think that work that we can partner with the village and the municipalities on is going to have more teeth than the vape sensors or the monitoring of the hallways. I mean, we do that, and we have those things in place. We hope to enhance that in the near future. But it is that wraparound that Christine was talking about. We can't combat this on our own. We do need the help and the attention of the parents. I mean, if one of my kids came home and had a $600 ticket in their hand, the whole dynamic changes. Even if that kid is 17 or 18 years old, the whole dynamic changes.
Absolutely. And then if they can drive, maybe we boot them off the premises for a month, or
so
we can walk in the snow?
We do have the ability to restrict the parking passes that kids have. We do have some neighboring groups. I do know that one of the churches in the area allows their students to park on that property. So we can use that if we need to use that as a tool, but that again is the monitoring, and we partner with our school resource officer on that monitoring.
Thank you.
Jason?
How sensitive are the sensors that they have for the vape?
Talk in the microphone, please, Jason.
How sensitive are those sensors that they have for the vapes?
We're looking at upgrading the sensors to address that very concern.
Can we use those in conjunction with this new system that we're going to put in with the?
Yep, we can talk about more how that works at a different time, but yes, that would be integrated with the cameras.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah. Why don't we go to $600 or $500?
The village would actually have to, the village, the police department, and the city attorney, who is the kind of the prosecutor in this regard, we'd all have to agree on what those price points are. And the village might have to look at an ordinance change. The police would have to look at how they're citing it, and then we would need the teeth of that city attorney or the village attorney to actually enforce that part.
The first time, like if they get the ticket, there's not like a deferred agreement where they wouldn't have to pay it. I think to have the teeth, they need to have the ticket issued and the consequence.
You know, we don't want to be in a position where we don't want to continue to hit kids over the head time and time again. I mean, but this is one of those situations. I think one of the police officers shared with me that there's 17 locations in Mukwonago where you can get vape. I mean, that is a lot. It is very, very accessible. And there's very little that anybody can do to regulate the sale of it. They say don't sell it to minors, but older brother, older cousin, older friend. Somehow it's getting in the hands of the kids. And then when they do cite the location, there's enough money in the business where the ticket that they get is paid, and then we just move forward.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I never applied for a grant. I hear they can be quite cumbersome. So I just want
Who
to say
told you that?
thank you. What's that?
I said, who told you that? Was that Tom?
You might have been one of them.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for your hard work, always looking out for our students and also for looking out for our taxpayers and doing the extra work and going for grants. So
Thanks,
thank you.
Christine.
Thanks, Christine.
All right, finance and facilities.
All right, the first thing that we have then is a budget amendment. This is the first time we've done it in my time here. So ultimately, this proposed budget amendment, Dr. Cook, if you could just scroll down to the second page there. Just go to the top of this one here so I can just walk through this here very quickly. So we have the anticipated revenues. So if I'm just going to walk up there real quickly and explain this. The last time we approved a budget was back in October. This was the final budget we approved in October of 2024. And then this is ultimately how our actual revenues came in. So you can see for taxes, this is what we anticipated or what we approved in October. Nothing changed. There was no change. But you can see that there's just changes ultimately. Dr. Cook, if you could go down to the bottom. This is Fund 10, the general fund. Keep going to, so ultimately, we originally recognized $65.7 million in revenues. We actually experienced $67.6 million in revenues. Interest earnings, some other grants that came along, explains the differences. So ultimately, our budgeted revenues, our actual revenues, exceeded our budgeted revenues by $1.8 million. These are all categorized here with a three-digit number that tells us this is where the money's coming from. So those three-digit numbers, if it begins with a 6, it means it's coming from the state. If it begins with the 7, it's coming from the feds. So there's a rhyme and a reason. If you go on down just a little bit here, Dr. Cook, good right there. Our expenditures are listed here. These 6-digit numbers ultimately talk about what is the purpose of the expenditure, what program is it supporting. So 110,000 is K-6 education, 120,000 is grade 7-12, Phi-Ed curriculum, special education, so on and so forth. So you can see where the dollars are at, what we originally adopted in October, what actually occurred. And if you go all the way down to the bottom, you can see here's how much we approved originally and then how much actual expenditures. The increase in expenditures, if you recall, we transferred $3 million to Fund 46. So, I mean, we originally anticipated $7.6 million of a transfer. It ultimately became 10. Those two things are the Fund 27 transfer and then the Fund 46 transfer. So we took that through action. Then we have the Special Education Fund, which is Fund 10. We adopted a budget that was break even. There's our anticipated revenues, anticipated expenditures. Our actual revenues and expenditures were less than that. So by taking action here, we need 2/3 of all board members. So at least 6 of you need to vote in favor of this. That ultimately is saying we support the things that we did throughout the year. We recognize the changes that took place, and you're ultimately blessing everything that took place up until where we got to right now. Any questions? Okay, we can take action on that at the next meeting. And then the second thing we had was transportation behavior. So we discussed this back in May. I'm bringing this back to you right now. Eric, you gave us a software, a technology software as a solution to potentially work on student behavior. Myself, Katrina Kine, who's the terminal manager in the Mukwonago terminal, and 3 or 4 elementary principals took a look at that. And ultimately, when we looked at it, we felt this is something we can do in-house. It was a software technology company that did not specialize in bus transportation. They were just able to create something that we ultimately felt we could do on our own. But we ultimately said we don't favor this because at the end of the day, what we need is the driver to witness things and then to report it. And so long as they do that and they let the terminal manager know, we can take care of the rest. Dr. Cook, can you there we go. So we have these bus discipline procedures. If you stay right there, we came together and we created this with language that mirrors expectations in our classrooms. So I'll just briefly walk through this here, but we have four columns here for minor behavior incidents, the first major, the second major, and the third major, and the things that we do. In all these instances, what we have then is we have laptop technology. It's a simple form that can also be used on a phone. So a lot of drivers, they drive their buses home. They don't necessarily go back to the terminal at the end of the day. So they'll access this just through their cell phone, and then they'll access it, enter information, the route, the school, the student name, and then the behavior type. Minor behavior, I should back up then. Once they submit that conduct report that we're talking about, that will automatically go to the terminal manager, and the terminal manager will review that and say, yep, that's a minor, I agree, or no, that's a major, we're gonna elevate this. If it's a minor incident here, so a minor is safety issues, talking loud, not sitting, standing up while the bus is in motion, so on and so forth, disrespect towards the driver or others, inappropriate language. Those are things that we would consider minor. When that happens, then the terminal manager is going to email the parents and let them know this is what happened. The principal is going to be CC'd on that, so the principal knows we have a student who's moving in the wrong direction, but we're simply letting them know. A bus driver can reassign a seat and a seatmate as needed. If a student gets 1, 2 on the third minor, we say, hey, repeat bad behavior. We're going to call that third minor a major. So if a major, and if we just talk about what is a major in a one-time incident, it's bullying and harassing, fighting, a weapon on a bus, inappropriate technology use, drugs, vaping, so on and so forth. We consider those to be major behavior incidents. So when that takes place, the bus driver notifies the terminal manager by submitting a conduct report, either through a laptop or through their phone. Terminal manager will review that and notify the principal. The principal then takes over and said, we'll take majors from here. The principal will investigate as needed. The principal will meet with the student and inform the parents of the outcome via a phone call. So that may be a 3-day, a 5-day suspension from the bus for whatever the major behavior was, okay? Once we get to the second major, if it repeats, then now we basically add this step here where a principal arranges for a conference with the student and the parents and a district office administrator. An improvement plan is developed and enforced, and then the principal will again issue the discipline, which can include a bus suspension up to 5 days, but for a high school student, we bring it up to 10. There's just higher expectations as a kiddo gets older. If there's a third one, now we have some serious concerns, and we really should never be in the territory of a third major incident, but if that were to happen, again, we would have a principal arrange for a conference with the student, the parent, and a district office administrator, and the district office administrator will ultimately make the determination of a suspension from 5 up to 30 days, and we do reserve the right to revoke bus privileges for anybody that can't figure out what's expected of them ultimately. On August 20th, so next week, Wednesday, I believe, all Mukwonago bus drivers will be at Mukwonago High School for their annual kickoff meeting. I'll be attending that meeting to explain to them what we want for them to do, what the expectations are, how to understand what's a minor, what's a major, and to let them know ultimately that we can help, but you have to make us aware. What I think we ultimately find a lot, and you all hear feedback at times from community members, is there's an incident going on and the bus driver isn't addressing it. If we can implement this and we go through the chain of command of working with terminal managers, working with principals, at times bringing parents in and issuing appropriate consistent consequences for the behavior, we think we can get a lot of improvement out of this so that the bus is a safe place to be. You're not worried about getting harassed, bullied, any of those things. So we take that very seriously. But we just need to create a common expectation that's easily understood by our drivers. So the technology, ultimately, the conduct report that's accessible electronically is what you suggested that we look at, and we felt that's something that we can easily do in-house, so we've already created that, and we're ready to roll. Do you guys have any questions or concerns that we should think about?
Mr. Karthauser, what is your title here at the district?
Chief Financial Officer and other duties as assigned.
bus discipline procedures is under that,
Hey, no,
I'm
sometimes,
just saying, I think your time is pretty valuable, and maybe someone that's maybe better at this, or, I don't know how to explain it, but I'm just thinking out loud. If you wanna do it, great, T-Cart, but you're a pretty busy
Well-
guy, and I hate to see you cry in a
Oh.
corner, collapse in a corner, you know?
thank you. I understand
Okay.
what you're saying, but I think about a lot of the things that all of our staff in this district do. I look at Christine and school safety. 30 years ago, the things that kids are expected to do in a lockdown, we never would have guessed that's something that a school has to be concerned with, running a paramilitary style student reaction to what takes place in schools, and that's unfortunate. But that's other duties as assigned for Christine in some of her role, and this is something that falls in.
So
my
you're
area.
nominating Christine?
She's qualified to take over bus discipline, so all in favor say aye. No, it just comes with the territory. I ultimately am responsible for the contract with the transportation company. We pay them monthly. In return, here's what we expect. We're happy to support our bus drivers. We understand what they're up against. These are 70 persons. Some of our buses have 70 kids. Imagine driving a minivan with 70 kids, and you're responsible to keep it safe and to make sure everybody in the back is doing what they're supposed to do when they need to do it. Believe it or not, that doesn't always happen, especially at the end of the school year, especially in the afternoons when everybody's excited to leave school and get home. Mornings can be smooth sailing, typically. Afternoons, not always the case. So first things first, we ask the bus driver, drive safely. But if something comes to your attention, we can address that immediately. You just need to let your terminal manager know and fill out the conduct report, and we'll take it from there. So it's a lot to ask of a bus driver who's making 22 an hour. First things first, and always first things first, drive it safely. But these things we can't ignore, so this is our method to trying to help out here.
Craig, and just a reminder that if it does say district office administrator, if Tom is in the middle of the busy season, coming up September, October, if he deals with that while he's trying to get a budget ready, there is somebody else who can step in and help with the discipline component for an individual student situation.
We could put school board vice president there if you, cool, all right. I'll revise this and bring it back.
Mike, please.
I said, I'm in, I'd help.
Any other questions for Tom?
Yes. So in the minors, I see inappropriate touching, which I think could kind of go either way.
Well, that,
Sexual assault or anything like
right.
that. And then vandalism, I think, might be, I don't know.
So I guess when we say, where was that one at that you just pointed out there? The inappropriate physical contact, we're thinking that's not keeping your hands to yourself. Like Johnny keeps pulling my hair or whatever. If it's sexual in nature, easily a major, like no questions asked. And we're going to treat that very seriously as if it were to happen. We're trying to get this to mirror what our classroom expectations are. So whether you do that inappropriate behavior on the bus, or in fifth hour, at 10 o'clock in the school, whatever that might be, we're treating that all the same. There is no difference there.
The other thing I'd like to point out, too, from a behavior standpoint is you do see where it says major, and then you see down below a list that's not an exhaustive list, and there's nothing that says that if you brought a weapon to school, we would treat that with a 3-day bus suspension. Right?
Isn't that an automatic suspension?
That could be, we would look at that through the lens, and Christine, we've talked about it before, she does a great job with pre-expulsion. So if you bring a weapon to school and you're caught with it, say it's a knife, you're caught with that knife, it would be looking at the bus component of it, but we're also then looking at the pre-expulsion component of it. And then that will deal with the overarching discipline for the student. And if we needed to, if it was severe enough, it would go from first offense to up to third, where you'd start to look at longer-term suspension. But that would be handled ultimately through a pre-expulsion, not just a regular old, like, hey, you did it. Tom's the only one who's going to handle it in this instance. Now we're talking pre-expulsion. Christine's going to take it, and then we have an agreement in place.
So we have a little more.
Jason?
I was just going to ask, these school bus drivers, I mean, they've got to have pretty thick skin to do this, right?
There's
I mean,
no
I know you don't know
question about
all of them, but I mean, it's kind of a rhetorical question. You got to.
It's a tough gig. There's no question.
So, disrespect towards the driver. If we move that to a major, I mean, if they command respect, I've got to think that the rest of it all kind of falls in line. If you're disrespecting the driver,
I think we could discuss this all night long. Jason, agreed? Are we getting too far in the weeds? Just my,
So perhaps maybe we could just give this as a start and let's see how it goes. And we can always come back to tighten and change and adapt and proceed, you know? So if we could start here, we're certainly open to suggestions, but as a starting point, I think this is where, you know, we had principals come in on this. I agree with what you're saying. I know as a parent, if Owen and Jace Cardhauser show disrespect to any adult or any other kiddo, I'll take care of it from there. But from a school district standpoint, we got to address that bus behavior. So this is our starting point, but we'll monitor this to see if it's effective. We'll take driver feedback throughout the year to say if there's something that we need to change, and we'll bring it back to you guys if that comes up.
Versi will bypass going to subsection Z then.
We're going to move the bus stop.
I agree with everything you said.
All the bus
100%,
stops in Craig's neighborhood
We
will
could
be in his
talk about it
front
for
yard.
hours.
The only other thing I disagree with is putting Verti in this role. But just keep him at home.
Done.
We move the school bus stop to your front yard, Craig. You'll have a lot of kids there running around every day.
All the Heilingenthals. Is there 10 of them now?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to action items, hires, retirements, and resignations.
All right, we had a busy month with new hires. We have Kim Bressel, who is slated to be a special education teacher at the high school. Brenda Bergdad, who is scheduled to be a business and marketing teacher at the high school. Rebecca Krieger, slated to be a split kindergarten, first grade teacher at Eagleville. Haley Perriman, who is special education at the high school. And then the last three are all limited term contracts, and those are our title teachers. So title funds are allocated to us each year, and so we staff based on those title allocations. And so we have Becky Rail, a Title I teacher coming to Parkview Elementary, Erin Smith, a title teacher coming to Clarendon, and then Amanda Turcha coming to Clarendon as well. And then we have two resignations, Marlena Johnson, a special education teacher at the high school, and Carlos Romo, a social studies teacher at the high school.
All right, we're looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the hires and resignations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Next up on the agenda is executive session. According to Wisconsin statute 19.85, we are going to be talking about employee compensation. Looking for a motion to close.
I'll make a motion we close, open, and go into closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Mr. Gooch?
Jason. Myself, yes. James.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Craig.
Here.
All right. We are closing the open session. We'll take a 5-minute break. Are we ready? Okay. All right, calling the session back in at 8:58 on Monday, August 11th. And we are looking for a motion for employee compensation.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the administrative salaries as discussed in closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No. No. Sorry, I'm tired. I retract that.
There's, all 6 of us said aye.
Okay.
I made the motion.
I seconded.
And everybody's an aye, correct, Mr. Burks?
Correct.
All right.
Motion
Any
to
questions or
adjourn.
comments? Okay, no, that's it. Motion carries. Need a motion to close.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Jason.
Yes.
Myself, yes. James.
Yes.
Dale.